Now we've spent time analyzing two games with two different approaches to drawing creatures, I want to highlight a few principles of monster design for games. In the background, I'll be showing you the painting process. I made a gigantic and colorful insect, an imaginary creature inspired by mantis and centipedes. You can see the references I've chosen, a quick reference analysis, the few pose and style thumbnails I drew. This will give you a quick sense of the design process while I'm covering some principles of monster design. This is the last video about theory in this series. We're moving on to practice next. But for now, let's talk about 3 principles of monster design for games. Principle number 1. Design your monsters like any character. In your game and your story, monsters are characters. By that, I mean that they need to have a collective story, a background, a habitat. You have to know where a creature lives, how it grows, how it survives in its environment to give it an appropriate look. Where does it make its nest? How does it protect its children? This will allow you to give it an appropriate skin material, body mass, camouflage, a tail, wings, claws, etc. Like most concept artists, you can define the character with a mix of thumbnails and keywords. That's what I'm doing in PureRef and with my sketches in Photoshop. I'm collecting pictures, writing down a few words to remind myself that I want to draw inspiration from, for example, the colors of tropical birds here, to give my monster the elegant abdomen of a mantis, etc. Just like with animation, giving your monsters an identity will help you to invest yourself in their design. It forces you to care for them. It also works along with the next principle, as we're going to see. Principle number 2, find inspiration in the real world. As far as reference is concerned, look at animals, insects, plants, and any element of nature from the real world. Look at rocks and moss to design a golem, at trees to create a trend. Most creatures are a patchwork of existing animals. Fantasy-style dragons, for instance, a mix of bush viper snakes, the smoke giganteus, a flying fox, bats, a variety of reptiles. Here's a reference board with a few selected animals. At a glance, we can see some of the key characteristics of dragons in there. Creature designers don't come up with ideas out of thin air. They collect lots of pictures and refer to them all the time. If those animals are amazing in themselves, we can go even further and mix them with the colors of tropical birds, with the musculature of mammals or felines. The variety of patterns, the colors and forms we can find in nature is amazing, and we can combine them to produce an infinite amount of variation. That's actually the job of a concept artist, to produce an infinite number of design variations that are coherent with a given game or movie project. A little extra tip: mythology is a great source of inspiration. If you don't feel like inventing your own creatures, you can use descriptions from mythology and come up with your original designs. Your players will feel familiar with those creatures that they have seen in other games, movies, books. It will make them feel a bit familiar with your universe. And principle number 3, you have to create both a visual and a mechanical hierarchy between the player and the monsters. In the real world, when we see a snake, a huge spider, or any predator, it triggers an instant physiological reaction. In the game, you want to give the player visual cues so that he knows whether his opponent is going to be ferocious or harmless. It's all told by the silhouette, the form, the colors of your creature. Also by its sound design, but that's another story. The creature's size relative to the player is the easiest way to tell how strong it is. The bigger the monster, the larger its health pool should be. If it looks like an existing predator, for example a lion or a grizzly bear, it should be comparatively dangerous. Designers often reuse the traits of existing insects and animals to shape the gameplay. For instance, spiders and snakes tend to poison the player. Tigers and bears deal bleeding damage. To reflect those characteristics in the design, they often exaggerate the claws and fangs of those monsters, both in terms of size and colors. You also want your creatures to fit the progression of your game. In the early stages of Dragon Quest, you will face the notorious blobs, which are and look weak. In World of Warcraft, you will meet wild boars, wolves, etc. It's kind of the same in Guild Wars 2 and in most RPGs out there. The early stages of the game are easy to go through, and later on it gets harder. Hence, you meet more frightening creatures. To sum things up, you always want to match the visual design of your monsters and the challenge they represent in-game. If you played Skyrim, you know how ridiculous it feels to crush a dragon with your bare fists or with a single arrow. We now have a few principles to work with. In the next tutorials, I'm going to show you how I design monsters in practice in Mario's fashion, using the gameplay as a starting point.